In this video, I'm going to teach you the most effective, accurate, and guaranteed way you can drop body fat through dieting while maintaining all your muscle mass. It is a very simple process, and this is exactly what I do for myself when I am dieting. This is the exact process I take all my clients through when they want to drop fat as well. So, what you need to do to start with is come up with a diet that's going to fit into your life. Be realistic for you to do on a daily basis. And most importantly, you want this original diet to contain as much food as possible. Yes, I said contain as much food as possible. When you start a cut or decide you want to start dropping fat, you need to start on a good amount of food. You want lots of good quality carbs. When you are dieting to drop fat, there is no one diet that is going to work for you. It is impossible. You need to make constant changes to your diet on a weekly basis if you want to make continual progress. I don't care if you go through me or Josh as a coach or someone else, or even do it by yourself. But never ever pay for just a diet plan. Your diet must change on a regular basis. Not so much the foods you are eating or anything, but more so the amount of calories you are eating. So if someone says they will do your diet for you but won't make any changes, you are just paying for the original diet. Don't do it. It will work for the first few weeks, and then you will plateau and not lose any more weight, and it becomes a waste. You are not going to see good results from just a diet plan. I'm going to explain to you why. So your original base diet for a male should contain at least 6 to 8 meals, and for a female it should contain around 4 to 6 meals. You might think eating 7 or 8 times a day is a lot, and you can cram that amount of food into 3 or 4 meals, but you don't want to do that. Eating on a more frequent basis is the very first step in dropping fat, and probably the most important step because it kickstarts the entire process. The reason you want so many meals is so you will stay in a protein synthesis state. Protein synthesis is when your body is recovering muscles and you are burning fat as fuel. If you reduce your meals and you don't eat for 4 hours, your body goes into a catabolic period of burning muscle instead of fat. When you are putting together your base diet, which Josh will go over in the video, protein, carbs, and fats, you want to be eating for guys, let's say 7 meals a day, and for females, 5 meals a day. Every meal you have during those meals, it must contain a protein. If you're having a meal with protein, carbs, and fats, it is a muscle building meal. If you have a meal with just, say, carbs and fats, it is a waste of your time. It is not going to have any benefit at all on your body because it doesn't contain protein. Every single one of your 7 meals you consume on a day-to-day basis must contain protein. The way I diet and the way I am about to explain to you how to drop fat through food makes perfect sense to me logically, and that is why I use this method for myself and other clients I have helped get incredible shape. Logic is underlying formula in everything we do when it comes to building muscle and dropping fat, which you will come to understand as you watch more of our videos. Everything you do needs to make sense. So when you are dieting to lose fat, it needs to be for a set period of time. The reason we do a 16-week program is because cutting for 16 weeks is more than enough time to drop a large amount of body fat. You can drop the fat at a very good pace, and you don't have to do anything too drastic that may cause you to lose muscle mass. The reason I also recommend cutting for 16 weeks is because you can't cut forever. You will run yourself into the ground. So the process I'm going to explain to you is how I would cut and get rid of as much fat as I can while maintaining most of my muscle mass for a 16-week period. Losing fat is a very easy, but you need to do it properly because you don't want to lose a lot of muscle during this case. So this process is very similar to the muscle building video. It's just reversing the whole carb process. So here is what it's going to take. For how many meals you should consume, 7 meals for guys and 5 meals for a female. In all 7 meals, you want to have protein and carbs. And 2 of the 7 meals, you want to contain good quality fats. But what we are going to focus on is the carb intake. When I am dieting, my protein and my fats stay the same throughout the entire process. The carbohydrates are the only variable that changes when it comes to dieting for fat loss. Some people do increase the fats as the carbs get cut, but I personally believe you should be on a good amount of fat from the very start and should never need to increase them as you go because it affects a lot of your hormones. So fat's something you just want to keep there, just keep steady. So we are going to be focused on the carbs and manipulating it as we go. When you start dieting, you have protein in all 7 meals and you have carbs in all 7 meals. And the fats stay the same from the start to the finish. In week 1 of the cut, you are on the absolute maximum amount of food you will be eating for that entire 16-week period. You will not be dropping any fat from this. This is the maximum amount of food you will be eating for the entire 16-week period. You need to let your body get used to a high amount of food. It is very important. If you start on a minimal amount of food, what food would you have to cut from your diet to drop the body fat? If you want to get leaner, you need to be cutting food from your diet on a regular basis. You need to get your body used to the highest amount of food it can handle, and you eat that amount for, let's say, 2 weeks to start with. You want your body to get used to that amount of food. You need to let your body stabilize on that amount of food, and your metabolism is going to be working so much harder for you. As you have been eating those 7 meals a day for 14 days with carbohydrates in all 7 meals, which means now you can start the fat loss process. Once your body weight has stabilized on your original base diet, the next week you will cut carbs from just one of your meals. After you cut carbs from one of your meals, you might drop 1 or maybe 2 pounds. Then the next week, you add in 1 hour of cardio or add in a high intensity interval training workout and you might lose another pound. Then the week after that, you cut another part of your carbs from another meal. You might drop another 0.5 pounds. Then the week after that, you add in another hour of cardio on top of your training program you're on. You might drop another pound. Now, can you guys kind of see where we're going with this? It's just a slow, gradual carb cutting process until you have cut carbs from every meal except the post-workout meal. It is calculated and very accurate, an effective process. Each week into the cut, you cut your carbs from one meal. Then the week after that, you add in an hour of cardio. Cut carbs from one meal, add in another hour of cardio, and so on all the way through to week 16. You should never cut your post-workout carbs because that is when you run the risk of losing some muscle mass. You can cut all your carbs. You need to do it gradually over a lengthy period. But you must keep your post-workout carbs in so your muscles still get the chance to recover and be replenished with glycogen, and it won't deteriorate. The best way to lose fat is to do it gradually. If you cut all your carbs in 1 or 2 weeks, your body would drop weight very fast, maybe 2 or 3 pounds in a week. But then your body will become accustomed to that amount of food. You will stop losing weight, you will have very little energy, and you will plateau and stop losing fat. Not to mention, you will lose muscle in this process. You need to cut your carb intake very gradually. I know waiting is a pain, and we all want to look good now. But trust me, I go through the battle all the time. But by going through this, the correct process, it's going to make a huge difference to the end result. If you cut your carb intake gradually, you will continue to lose fat throughout the entire 16-week period and will not plateau. You will maintain all of your muscle mass and have a good amount of energy for majority of this process. However, as you can see, after about 10 weeks or so of increasing cardio and cutting carbs, your carb intake is going to get pretty low and your cardio is going to get pretty high. So the further you get into the cut, the better your results are going to be. After about 4 or 5 weeks of cutting, you will get so hooked on the results. And each week, you are just going to get leaner and leaner by gradually cutting carbs, 1 meal at a time, every other week. This process is guaranteed to work. It is not just a fad. It is not something I would tell you to do if I didn't think it was going to work. I like to see it as an intelligent, logical process that makes perfect sense to maximize the amount of fat one person can lose over a 16-week period of time. One thing I think I need to mention is the importance of being consistent. Yes, consistency is important. If you're missing meals, and you're cheating your diet, and missing workouts and stuff like that is going to affect the fat loss process. Your body won't be used to the same amount of food, and then when you do cut your carbs, it is not going to work. If you are eating the same amount of food on a daily and then weekly basis, nailing it every week, then you cut those carbs, increase the cardio gradually, it makes perfect sense that the fat is just going to fall off. But you need to be consistent. Cutting carbs and increasing cardio over a long period of time is going to result in consistent fat loss throughout the entire process. I have one cheat meal every week, which you should do as well, just to keep you sane and give you some form of enjoyment through food. But the key to this whole process working is dedication and consistency. You must get your meals in and you must get your workouts done every day. I actually forgot to mention that when starting the cut is actually a great time to build muscle. The reason I prefer this method over every other method is that the risk of losing muscle is extremely low and the chances of building muscle and dropping fat at the same time is really high. A lot of the time the weight scale won't move for the first 4 or 5 weeks because the carbs are actually building muscle while this process is happening. I see this with multiple clients that I have. If you are losing fat and building muscle, your weight tends to stay the same because they counteract each other. And this is why you cannot use the scale to measure your results. Tape measuring with a measuring tape is a great way to know if you are making results. Make sure to measure your thighs, your chest, your arms, your calves, and your waist. After you have successfully completed the 16-week fat loss period, you have just completed the correct process in dropping fat. So the end result, most of the time, actually results in you having much better shape. And you will be a lot leaner because that was the primary focus. So I just want to recap what you need to do to lose fat through dieting. You need to be eating approximately 7 meals a day if you're a male, 5 if you're a female. All meals must contain protein and all meals must contain good quality carbohydrates to start with. Each week you cut carbs from one meal, then the alternating week you add in an hour of cardio, whether it's steady state or high intensity. Look at the exercise demonstrations to pick what you want to do. Then you cut carbs, add cardio, cut carbs, add cardio, 1 week at a time throughout this whole 16-week period. I promise you, if you do this properly, you stay dedicated and you work hard in the gym in 16 weeks time, you will be in the best shape of your life. I'm not being arrogant here. I'm just being honest. Losing fat is so simple when you think about it logically. The hardest part of the process is actually staying dedicated and motivated for the 16 weeks. But like I said, stay focused for the first 4 or 5 weeks when fat loss is a little slow. But after that, from week 5 or 6 onwards, you will be so hooked on the changes you are seeing in the mirror, you will see it out to the end. And you are going to look incredible. If you still have more fat to lose after the first 16-week cut, reverse diet correctly, which we will teach you how to do in the reverse dieting video, and start the process again. Gradually add the carbs back into your diet, and each time you complete it, it will just get better and better. Think of it like this. If you started the process right now and started doing things properly right now, imagine how good you are going to look in 1 year's time.